So, let's talk about debugging. I noticed that a lot of junior developers and students don't really understand how powerful debugging is, and then they think that debugging is console.log or console.write lines, which in some way a lot of people use, but proper debugging can help you and make a difference from being a okay developer and a pretty nice detective developer that fixes bugs in a relative short amount of time. So I wanted to show you how you can do it both in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. So let's kick up with this application. Here we have, for example, just a basic setup of a role-based application. I have some authentication endpoints, and I have bank accounts. So how it works is that if we go to the API and we go maybe to the controllers and we want to see what happens when I try to get all of the bank accounts. So I can start here because here is the endpoint, right? To get all developers, get all bank accounts. So if I go here, click here, try it out, it doesn't hit, right? I get 401 and that is not authorized. So I can immediately know that even if I'm calling my endpoint here, I don't get to it. This breakpoint that I set here, I should probably explain. So here on the left side, as well in Visual Studio Code, you will see a grayed out area. And when you hover in Visual Studio, as well in Visual Studio Code, you see these circles. And these circles are breakpoints. So what breakpoints are is that, as you know, code executes, and where we want the code to stop, we set a breakpoint. So it will, if this is the line, let's say 50, this is line 51, it will execute this and stop here. So it will stop on the line where you set the breakpoint. So your application, whatever you do here, if the code is affected, this part of the code, if you try to execute it while, let's say, clicking or trying to send something here, it will stop where you set the breakpoint. You can set multiple breakpoints everywhere in your application. But I wanted to show you this. So for example, I set it here, but I cannot get all of my bank accounts because I need to be authorized. So what I get instead is, or I can leave it, I get the 401 not authorized when I try to execute get all bank accounts. So that means that I need to log in or register. And I have a dummy user that's admin and admin123. And I want to show you how that works. So if we go to the auth controller instead, and we go to, here is the register. I don't want to register, I want to log in, for example, here. So I set a breakpoint here in the result. So this won't be executed. I will just jump into my controller and be there before I start executing code. So I will just match the request that I sent, the HTTP request that is post login, with the data I have sent from here. So let's see that. Here I fill the username with admin and password with 123. So if I execute, you see that it took me itself. The Visual Studio lighted up, or if it doesn't take you directly, maybe you have some other windows open. So you can see that Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code is flashing. I need to mention that in Visual Studio you have these big red dots, and in Visual Studio Code they are smaller. Let's show maybe that as well. Not there. Let's see, I think it's in here somewhere. Here. So if we go to the API, we go to the controllers, we go to auth controller, you see when I hover here that there are some red dots showing up. And you can click on them, and then you will see that this is the breakpoint that you set for this file for auth controllers, for example. So you have the red dots here as well. But let's continue here. So the code hit my breakpoint, or the application hit my breakpoint, because this is what is going to be executed now. And if I want, I can hover, for example, this is the login, and this is the object that I'm sending. That is the login user DTO that has username and password. If I expand that, it really has password admin123 and username admin. And here, this is just a simple way how you can see if you really sent the right data, if the right data is coming, if you send parameters, of course, or some data to the API endpoint. So you can see what's happening inside your code. So we see that here we have a DTO that has password and username. And what will further happen is that this line of code will be executed. So we send this DTO, that is the login user information, to the auth service login user. So up here you have the possibility to debug further. So you have step into, step over, and step out. So step into, it means that, okay, let's go into this service and into this method to see what it does. Step over means that, okay, execute this line and go to the next line. And step out means that if you went in, that you can step out. So these two are the ones that you will use the most. So step into to go in, and step over in order to, okay, execute this, I want to go to the next line of code. And then it will stop here and here and here and here if you click this until it comes to the return statement. So, for example, debugging is not only good for, okay, stopping application and see what I've sent and if data is okay, and even if I got the result back to check the result. So it's not only used for that, you can also use it to understand the application. For example, if this is the code that you didn't write, you can jump into and see how the code behaves, where it takes you, what it does, and stuff like that. So for example, I have no idea what this auth service login async does. So I can click on the step into. Then it will take me to the login async method that we talked about. And we know here that we take the DTO admin123 and admin. So here we see, and then I can now execute. You see that we have an arrow here pointing where the code is. So it's not executing, it's stopped because we told it to stop. So it will not execute this method because it's here, right? And now I've went here. So the first thing, if I click on step over, is that this line of code will execute. So this, not line, but this bit of code. If we look at it, it goes to the database, and then it goes to the user tables. It includes roles where we match the username for the user. Nice. So if I execute this, so I get step over. So I go to the next bit of code. Then I can hover over the user and I can see if it really got something from the database, if it matched it with the username. And if I hover, I really see that, okay, I have, let's see, here, I have something. So I have both the password hash, the refresh token, the roles, for example, and the role is admin. Nice. So I have a lot of different stuff here. So you can hover and see what you got back as a response, right, from this bit of code. And that's how you get to learn your application. And you can go line by line, code bit for code bit, and just execute everything until you come back with the return statement and the successful operation result here. So that's how you get to know. You can execute. So for example, I click here now, step over, because this was an if statement if I didn't have a user. Nice. Now I have token that is generated JWT. That's a method. And then I pass a user. So here, for example, I don't know what this does. So I can also, again, go step into. And then I go to the generate JWT method. And here I can start executing again everything. Line by line, code bit by code bit. And I can come to the new return statement that I hear that JWT security token handler is going to write a token with our token that we built here with our issuer, audience, claims that are roles and username and emails and different stuff. So what you can do, if you want to go back, you can just continue executing, then it will take you back. And then you go further, and then here we have saving the stuff to the database, and then I have operation result, and then it will take me back all the way to the controller. So step into, you go into the method to see what's happening. If it's a method that you can go further, and step over just executes the next line of code. So here now, if I click on return or step over, sorry, this will execute, and I think it will send me back to the web browser. So if I click here, it's the operation result that needs to be adjusted or created, because I have a lot of different pipelines, and yeah, now it takes me back and I get my response. So I can take this token now and I can go to authorize, and then now, because I'm logged in, if I try execute, then now I'm taken to the bank accounts and the breakpoint that I had before. So step into, step over, and if you're satisfied with how everything looks, you can just click on continue, and if you want, you can also take away your breakpoint. So you can click on continue, and now I get all of the bank accounts, and now when I try to execute again, this is something that I had maybe before, then I get the new, or not the new, but the same code again. I don't hit the breakpoint on the get all endpoint here. So breakpoints all the way to the left, where you want your code to stop in order for you to inspect if everything behaves. You can go into a certain method or code. You can just execute it and go to the next line of the code. This is why debugging is so powerful, that you can start understanding both your code, how it behaves, or somebody else's. That's especially important when you start working somewhere, to start debugging and start looking and start understanding the code. And even if you want to develop something further, then debugging line by line, step by step, you can see if everything that you're doing is correct, as we did with the auth controller, where we control or where we see if the DTO really has the required information, and everything happening in the auth service as well. So that's debugging in Visual Studio. And in Visual Studio Code, if I close this and I go to Visual Studio Code, it's the same thing. Let me just start it up here. So we go to the API, we write .NET run, we kick it. Now we are at the localhost 7030 as we did before, and we can have the Swagger here. Nice. And in Visual Studio Code, if I as well, let's do the same thing with the login. If I set a breakpoint here in the result and go, or no, I think I did a mistake, and that's nice, because I'm going to show you why this is a mistake. So admin 123, and now if I execute, I will just log in, and I will show you why. Because in Visual Studio, here in the terminal, Visual Studio Code, sorry, when I run that, I started it without the debugging mode. Because here in Visual Studio, this means that you started in the debugging mode. And in terminal, when you run it, you just run it as application. It's not in debugging mode, and that means that these breakpoints do not work. So what you need to do is that you have here to the left run and debug button or menu option, and you click run and debug. And then what you need to do, let's see, C#, and then you choose your API as your startup project. So you do that, and then it will, I think, kick it off directly and even open the Swagger. So now, if we try to log in with admin and admin123, execute, then you see that, for example, Visual Studio takes you back, but this didn't take me back. It just flashes here at the bottom in the Visual Studio Code. Then I can go back. And as you see here to the left, I have call stack, watch, breakpoints, where I set them, and I have the variables. And here you can see that I don't need to hover over, even if I can. As you see, I can see the same things that I saw in the Visual Studio if I hover over the objects. But to the left, you have your variables, everything that you control here. So DTO, if I expand it, you can see that I have the values that I need. And the operation result is null at the moment, because those are the variables that in this debugging mode, the Visual Studio Code felt or recognized. So here as well, you have the same thing, step over, step into, step out. And you can continue here and cancel or stop the application or stop the debugging mode running here. So if I want to go to the auth service, same thing, step into, it takes me to the login async auth service that is here. So exactly the same thing. And when I went here, it noticed that we have token as a new variable, as well as refresh. So it will detect them automatically, and you don't need to worry, or you can hover over. You can hover over the stuff, and you can see what they actually are. So for example, now we have user with everything. So it detects all the variables and objects automatically. So you don't have to hover. You have everything here nice on the left side, but you can if you want to. So this is debugging in both Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. Please practice this if you're a beginner or a student or a junior developer. This will save you a lot of time when it comes to both you developing new stuff or debugging to try to understand somebody else's code. So please, please, please focus on having this in your army of tools. Yes, thank you.